Yeah, this is like a disappointment simulator. You're like a little kid and there's boars. What'd you think?
It's like a cinematic adventure puzzle platformer.
That's a good way to put it. It's like an Uncharted-like.
Okay. Yeah. I drew most of my comparisons to Eco.
Yes, absolutely. It seems deliberate, even where it, like the red cloth seems very evocative of that. It's
it
very
does,
strange.
definitely. And Journey, of course.
Yep.
Which was a good one of these.
Yeah. Okay. So what sets this one apart? What's the Mr. Executive in a boardroom? What's the pitch?
This one is made by Spanish development studio, so it'll set us apart.
I gotta say, jumping way ahead here, this is probably the only time when the credits have been more emotionally affecting for me than the actual game.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I thought the little shout-outs and everything in the credits were very heartwarming and cute, and in a way that I felt the game was trying to be, and failed completely for me. So
this is it's an interesting game. There's no combat, you got no HUD, you got no dialogue, so it's very similar to something like Eco or Journey in that respect.
You can press the please bring in the developer to tell me how I should be feeling button, the vocalization button.
That's right.
The cry when it's a sad moment button.
Yeah.
Oh.
I liked how they made like the interaction just a little yell, so you could go, ha!
Why?
Ha!
I'm just kidding. This game's okay. This game's fine.
This game has a cool art style. Kind of.
It does. This is a beautiful game, I would say.
Yeah, kind of minimalistic, almost cartoony looking.
Yeah.
And it can look really good when it wants to.
I was stunned at points. Not because of fidelity, let's say, but just because of how good everything looked.
Yeah, they took a good art style and good art direction and run with it. But they are clearly, like you're saying, cheating with some of the visuals, like the starry sky in the beginning. Yeah. That's clearly just like a flat plane with bright dots, just like really close to the camera, and it was distracting for me.
Okay, didn't look so good.
The night skies look like they're like 100 yards away.
That's kind of my problem with this entire game, is that ostensibly it's about being marooned on this island, but immediately it's like, no, this is safe and this is all facade and none of this is actually... You're in no danger, and all this is puzzles in search of a plot twist that occurs at the very end of the game, and that's what it felt like immediately, and that's how it felt through the entire game, and then that's what it was at the end. And this is not actually about being on an island in any way. So
no. Yeah, that's something that kind of disappointed me too, because you're just kind of slingshotted between a bunch of different levels and areas.
Yes.
Instead of just being placed on an island to explore.
Right.
It's very disjointed.
Yes, it feels like you're being led along, because you literally are being led along by a little fox. And you can explore if you want to, but I soon realized that you cannot go back and explore things that you've progressed past, because this is about a story being told, and it's not about actually exploring this island. So.
Yeah, and they take a minimalistic story approach, at least in the beginning, where you just kind of wake up, and then it kind of just completely omits giving you any kind of motivation. You're just some kid who wakes up on a beach. That's it. I hope you're self-motivated.
Yeah, right. I guess that's fair, yeah.
I can understand how they probably want you to feel curious, to explore.
Yeah, and I was.
Yeah. And then they start throwing, the cloaked person, the other person with the red cloak in there. And that, in other games, is handled very well, because it's just kind of something in the background, but here they just kind of throw it in your face. Okay. And then it actually becomes a character. Right.
I thought that was very effective visually.
Yeah.
Just seeing him off in the distance watching you, and
and the red scarf stood in stark contrast to the rest of the color palette, which was well handled. Yeah.
And then it does the thing I hate, which is you are about to see him. You follow him into a hallway, and you can you're like, I can almost see him, I can almost see him.
And then it just disappears.
And it takes me out of the game, because I knew that they knew that I couldn't
Yeah.
see them, and they built it that way. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm playing a video game.
Yeah, but
So this game's a puzzle game, right?
yes.
The puzzles are bad. There aren't many, and they're bad, I felt. Because, clever though they may be, and some of them are very clever, and it's cool, not clever from a puzzle design standpoint, but just from a, you solve them using a cool tool, if that makes sense. Because you're looking through this thing, and then you line up things in the environment, and it glows, and then you've solved the puzzle, which is not much of a puzzle, but
Yes.
it's a cool concept. But almost immediately they shove this puzzle in your face that didn't make any sense to me, and it is not built upon anything, which is that you need to line up part of the environment with this stone on a pedestal, and then it fuses with the pedestal, but it goes against the logic they've established in the previous puzzles.
Yeah.
And I was stumped. I had no idea what was going on, because there's like one in the background that feels like it should play into what you're doing, but it doesn't really until after you do this other part of the puzzle. I was very disappointed. And this is like one of 5 puzzles maybe that are in this game, because there aren't actually that many puzzles,
Yeah.
because very quickly it just becomes jumping or climbing puzzles.
Yeah, and what really frustrated me is that there were a handful of puzzles where I just didn't understand what was available to me. So, for example, there was one where, like, the thing I needed was, like, up on this ledge that I didn't know existed until I I gave up, and then I started moving my camera everywhere, and then I was like, oh, I guess I can climb there now. Or I guess I'm supposed to climb there. So I climbed there, and then I solved the puzzle because I gave up.
And this is the gameplay is the thing. Like, in the absence of story, or there's no combat, there's no collecting anything. This game is literally just a series of these puzzles, and I feel like the ratio of good puzzle and bad puzzle is very poor.
Yeah. And you, like you said, you do a lot of climbing, jumping, shimmying, like in your typical Uncharted game, but it's just a bit clunky and stiff here, which is kind of, you know, it doesn't make it any more pleasant to be doing the same climbing, jumping, slowly lifting yourself up over and over when it's a little stiff.
Yeah. Even at its best, I don't know what the appeal is for that type of gameplay. Like, there's a path set out for you, and you just follow it, basically, is the gameplay there. And that kind of, at the beginning of the game, that's what you're doing, and then at the end of the game, that's still what you're doing. And by the end, that is the puzzle. Like, a lot of it is just get up to this place, and all it is you jumping around on stuff. And that's, they kind of just drop any pretense of this being a puzzle game at some point.
Yeah.
During the last third or so.
They just push you along.
They do. They push you into... it's frustrating, because there is this amazing imagery they keep throwing at you during this game, but they don't pair it well with emotion, or they throw emotion at you in a really heavy-handed way, where the one that stands out for me is you have these sentinels you're awakening. And then the sentinel, it's just this one example where the sentinels activate doors by going into them and then kind of fusing with the door, and in a sense these sentinels are dying in that sense. But the third time that happens, your character's like, no, don't do this. But it already happened. So I didn't understand. You like cry because this robot has fused with a door, but that's happened 3 or 4 times already in the game. So, and this is like the big wellspring of emotion at the end of the game, because it's like the rain is coming down and it's all depressing and sad, and I was just like, what? What's going on?
I felt introducing those like behemoth robot walker companion things were cool, because it's like, with the exception of the fox, it's actually something else that you got with you that you can run around with. And it's big, and it feels like, you know, it should be powerful, and that it could really, you know, get you through, considering how useless you are throughout the entirety of the game. But it just kind of lumbers around. It'll step on a switch for you, and that's about it.
It felt like I didn't play it, but the Last Guardian kind of thing, where it's just like it's an animal, and you just kind of has a mind of its own, but you can kind of lead it around with the little spheres and stuff. But they introduced that concept, and then that doesn't really evolve. It's like they have all these concepts for puzzles, but they only give you, like in other games, they would have like 3 of a puzzle, and it would get more complex and interesting each time. And this one, they just have like the first version of a bunch of different puzzles. Where it's like, make it stand on the thing, and then it does, and then the door opens, and then you move on. I don't know.
And you do it. But there's things to like about RiME.
Okay, hit me.
No HUD was a good choice.
Okay.
So you can really take in the scale of the environment and your surroundings.
Yep.
I like that.
Feels naturalistic. It's like, I'm actually on this island.
Yeah, there's some cool conceptual stuff. Like there's this day-night
Yes.
orb
Yes.
that like spins around and like things just rapidly change from day to night. That looked really cool.
That was awesome.
You've got this barking puppy fox that you mentioned, and that it's cute. And I understand that they use it to try and telegraph where you're supposed to go next, but its bark is so annoying. I hated its barking.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah.
I didn't like it.
It is kind of odd where you're like trying to explore and stuff, and it's just like, hey, come on.
And probably the last best thing I have to say about RiME is the score. I really like the orchestral score.
Definitely. Very
It
good.
matched the game, and it matched the moments, and it felt like it was, matching the emotions that it wanted to evoke.
Yes. And it wasn't just like generic,
Yeah.
strings and stuff. It was like,
Yeah,
this
totally.
is good. How'd you feel about the twist that is obviously
A twist at
being
the
set up?
end.
Yeah, it's not even really a twist, I guess.
No.
I mean, this is so obviously a metaphor for something that
Yeah.
I was just waiting for it.
And then after you beat the game, you see the name of the chapters, and they're like the phases of death,
Yeah.
accepting death or something.
Yeah.
It didn't do anything for me, really. I mean,
Okay.
playing as the dad and then sitting down with the mom and the kid.
Yeah.
It didn't. Him looking at all the toys. I mean, they're very clearly, trying to make you all sappy sad.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, I don't know. He looks out at the boat, and I'm like, yeah, you lost your son on the boat. What took me out of it was in the cinematic where he drops the son
Yeah.
in like the torrential waters. He just like drops him, and then he looks sad, like he gives up.
Yeah.
He's like,
it's
well, I
shoot.
dropped him in the water. He's dead.
Oh. Yeah.
Don't kids float, Pop?
It just feels like the most there's just no nuance to it. It's just like he's sad the kid died.
Yeah.
And the kid died in this very basic way.
Mm-hmm.
And the mom died because of the thing or something.
Yeah, something.
But like if they had maybe had the dad throughout the game, like in between chapters or something,
Yeah.
like give him a story or something. But yeah, the only thing I really liked was where you personally kind of let go of the cloth. You kind of have to move the arm out at the very end. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah.
I feel like they don't connect that very ending part to the rest of it, because the rest of it has this whole feeling of exploring this doomed or extinct society, and it feels like there's this mythology going on, and then they just drop all that in service of the personal story, and
Yeah.
it's some sort of metaphor, but I feel like it gives them a pass on not exploring any of that, because it's like, it's not real, it's in his mind, this isn't what it's about. So
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I really like. That's why I really like something like Eco or Shadow of the Colossus or The Last Guardian even, and not this.
Yeah.
Because those set up like these ancient derelict civilizations in which there are these abandoned buildings and ruins.
Yeah.
And this game has a lot of parallels to that.
Right.
But like you're saying, this RiME isn't like dripping in unspoken lore. It's just kind of these things that are placed there for gameplay purposes.
Yeah, it's all visual metaphor for something else, so it doesn't let you imagine questions about the society or anything, because at the end they're just like, no, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From a gameplay perspective, I felt that RiME really kind of showed its seams. I mean, this isn't indie game, so it was developed by an independent, fairly small studio, I'd assume, and
Yeah.
they've been working on this game for like, what, 4 or 5 years, a long time. But yeah, it just kind of shows its seams. Like, there's a never-ending hallway section,
Yep.
and it like hitches at a certain point when it repeats. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay. There's a couple like enemies and the mechanical robot companion behemoth guys. I felt the AI was very mechanical.
Yeah.
You could kind of tell exactly like how the AI was functioning.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just felt like, and the clunky platforming also kind of contributed to that seamy feel.
Yeah, the concepts there. Like, I was very into this game for about 10 minutes when I started it. But it just kind of wears you down. It's just kind of...
Yeah, the opening is handled really well. Like, the camera placement telegraphs where you're supposed to be looking and where you're supposed to be moving.
Yep.
And, like, just being on this island is kind of nice. But then you kind of start getting into the swing of things, and you start climbing that spiral, and you start realizing that this is just a bunch of segregated levels.
Yep.
And it just kind of lost some of its sheen to me.
Yeah, that was...
as I got further in.
That was the moment where my excitement dropped the farthest. It was when I got to that second area, and I was like, you can't go back. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't like this game anymore.
Oh, no.
Well, and that's... I don't feel like any of the areas are as good as the first one.
Yeah.
Because the first one had, like, actual environmental storytelling going on, I felt like.
Yeah.
And it was... Like, it's interesting now to look back and be like, okay, yeah, that grave, it was hidden. And that's interesting because this is like a representation of this man's psyche or something. So there's cool stuff there. And then you get to the end, the depression part, and it's just rainy, and there's not really anything to find.
Yeah.
It felt like it's just running you through the gauntlet, so... I don't know.
Yeah.
It almost feels like there's an act missing in this game. I feel like between...
That's possible.
I would say between the third and fourth, like between the one with all the robots and then the one with the rain. I feel like there's a perk missing there or something. But
Yeah, that's possible. I definitely got the feeling like the opening area, the opening section, in like the outdoor island place. I felt like that maybe was supposed to be the whole game, because I remember seeing like early material for the game and that being the only area that they showed.
Right.
And then maybe just kind of giving up and then making separate sections.
Like, oh, we can't do this, but we can make levels, so here's 3 levels, and then this area, the ending.
Yeah. You go to the bird one, which is visually interesting, but I don't like how the whole time the bird is just gonna like eat you,
Snatch
so you just have to hide beneath shadows. And there were certain sections where I felt like I should not have gotten eaten because I was in a shadow, and I felt like I was being covered, but nope.
Yep, the visual representation of that isn't that great.
Yeah.
It just doesn't... But visually that area, I think, is awesome. With the changing weather and everything, that's really cool. And the time thing! I'm glad you pointed that out, because I almost forgot about that. But that, like when he grabs the sphere and all of a sudden it's just like freaking out for a little bit. Yeah. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was a high point.
Yeah. I feel like we don't have to start at the bottom necessarily.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Beyond. Are we thinking
Beyond
above,
Two Souls?
below?
Where the heck is Beyond? Oh, I was feeling this is kind of the waters where RiME would end up, drowning.
Yeah.
Just like the sun.
Yeah. Because there's no coral with giant air bubbles.
Exactly.
Around,
so somewhere, like, I feel like Rechain would probably be the ceiling, somewhere around there.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say we like above Star Fox Adventures, right? Like,
yes.
Both.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. Oh, I don't know. Beyond Two Souls is probably a worse game.
Yeah.
I was gonna have a butt, but I don't really have a butt, I guess.
But you really liked how it's Indie Game the movie? I mean, Indie Movie the game?
I don't know. It was alright.
Yeah.
I would say, like, below Resident Evil?
Sure.
That seems appropriate to me.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
What about above Resident Evil?
I'm okay with that too. Which is better, RiME or Resident Evil?
Resident Evil in my mind is not what Resident Evil is.
Yeah.
You know?
Running away from those weird insta-kill guys.
Yeah, the big frog dudes were creepy.
You take a bunch of bullets.
Is there a part where like dogs drop on you or something? Or
In Resident Evil?
snakes or something?
Or in
In that
RiME?
in Resident Evil.
There's dogs that crash in through a window.
Yeah, that's true. Or spiders. I think it's like big spiders.
Spiders,
just
yes.
drop on you.
Giant spiders. Ugh.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
really hammy acting. You know, that's something RiME doesn't have.
Wait,
experience
don't
really could've
go!
Yeah, elevated.
Yeah.
You're gonna be a RiME sandwich.
Well, let's make a RiME sandwich with the bread being Resident Evil and Vanquish.
Beautiful.
Done.
I like that.